Takeshi Saheki. So as introduced, I'm currently in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So it's really nice to see you all. And I'm also excited, and it's also a great pleasure for me to make a presentation today. So I would like to start my presentation. So let me share. Yes, actually, I slightly changed the title to water-related issues in developing countries to water supply in developing countries. It's because the water issues are really broad, and if I start talking about it, I saw that I might not finish the presentation within 1 hour. So this time, I'm going to focus on the water supply issues in developing countries. So I would like to touch upon some of the trends of the water supply issues, as well as the offshore development assistance. So brief self-introduction. So I joined JICA in 2005 and started my career in Marawi office. So Marawi, maybe you might not be so familiar with this country, but this is a country in the southern part of Africa. Yes, and after 2006, I worked in the headquarters, and this time, yes, I worked for African countries, Middle East, or Latin American countries, Pacific Islands. So yeah, I was lucky to work for many countries all around the world for the water supply and sanitation issues. Then I was based in Pakistan office from 2010. And from 2014, I moved to the headquarters. I was responsible for JDS program as well, and also Philippines. So it's really nice that I can speak to the JDS students as well as the participants from Philippines today. And from 2021, I'm working in Bangladesh office. I have 3 masters, and the most recent one was in the University of Tokyo, and Furumai Sensei was my supervisor. And actually, I prepared some slides about who we are, but probably most of you already know about JICA. Yes, so we are the bilateral donor agency of Japan, and we implement a variety of programs like technical cooperation and grants and loan financing, private sector investment finance. So maybe I will skip these slides and start explaining about today's main topic. So water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. We used to call it WASH. So the image on the slide, sorry, it's in Japanese. I took it from UNICEF's website. So what's written on here is how dirty the water is. I have no options to drink this water. So this picture is from 2016, Togo, one of the African countries. Yes, but I would like to elaborate a little bit about what is the problem of drinking this dirty water. So this figure shows the negative impacts coming from wash issues. So starting from the left side, so these are the issues coming from the contaminated water. So the contamination sometimes coming from the nature, maybe like from the groundwater. There might be some arsenic contamination, fluoride. If the area is close to the sea, there might be some like salt intrusion, and it might be coming from like industrial contamination or maybe deliberate additives. So yes, so these are, as you already know, a problem. And also, not directly from the water, but maybe, from the aerosols, or maybe from the aquatic vector, like a worm from the shellfish, snails. I think even in Japan, we were facing some problems of the schistosomiasis in the past. And also some bacterial or parasitic and viral oral fecal infections might happen from water. And these are always the cause of the diarrhea. And maybe it's not coming directly from the water, but there might be some infections from like fingers or food or feed crops. These can be, the pathways to your mouth. And also, like there are some other infections. It might be, transmitted by the insects near the water, like flies. And if the water source is far away, maybe you have to carry the water, and of course it's heavy, to your premises. And during your travel from the water source to your house, there might be poisonous snake or like insects that might bite you, and there's a risk of rape. And of course, there will be some mental distress by, difficulty in getting the water. So these are a simple diagram, what we call F diagram. So I think this diagrams illustrates well about why we are discussing not only water, but also sanitation and hygiene. So this diagram shows the pathways from the feces to the mouth or faces. So why this is called F diagrams? As you can see, there are many F. So the feces can be transmitted by fluids, fingers, flies, feels, and floods, and of course, foods. So how can we disconnect these pathways? So you can find many stars in this diagram. So the W shows water. So by protecting the water source, or maybe the water treatment, you can of course disconnect the pathway. And the sanitation, if you can safely separate the feces by like constructing the toilets or maybe the pit latrines, that might be a good option for disconnecting the pathways. And also the hygienic activity is very important, like washing hands, cover food, and washing food, so on. So the important thing is not only water, but the sanitation and hygiene. These combinations are really important to avoid the issues coming from the water. So these are the kind of like a basic of the issues of the WASH. And I would like to touch upon some of the history of the water supply issues. So I think you're familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but this time I would like to recap the issues from like 2000 or maybe 1990s. So this was the global status of WASH in 2000. Left pie chart shows the global population not served with improved water supply. So overall, 1.1 billion population didn't have access to improved safe water. And as you can see, 63% of them are from Asian region and 28% is Africa. Considering the large population in Asian countries, so you can understand that there was a big issues in African countries. And the right one is about the sanitation. So the total unserved population is more than double, 2.4 billion people. And here it's also the same. The population is mostly Asian and African countries. And this here bar chart shows the differences between the urban and the rural. So Obviously, there is a large gap between the urban and the rural and the total water supply. Yes, and this blue bar is showing the situation of the 1990, and the red one is 2000. So you can see that there was not a big differences between the 1990s to 2000. And same things can be said to the sanitation as well. So the United Nations General Assembly decided to tackle to this situation by setting the Millennium Development Goals. So there was 8 goals in this MDGs, and the water-related issues was discussed in goal number 7, ensure environmental sustainability. And there was a target for the water supply by 2015 have the proportion of people without sustainable access to safe drinking water and basic sanitation. And for the MDGs, the baseline was set at 1990. So let me share some of the cases of JICA's project, which we implemented to address the water supply issues at the time. So this is a project in Marawi. Yes, in Marawi, actually, it was very difficult to find safe and quantity groundwater. So we had to conduct the hydrogeological survey to find out the good water sources. So JICA implemented such survey. And once we could find the potential groundwater sources, we constructed the deep well and equipped them with hand pumps. So this picture is showing the example of the hand pumps which we constructed. So these hand pumps, this is called AfriDev pump. In most of the countries, they try to unify the specification of the hand pumps so that it's easier to maintain and also procure the spare parts. And as you can see, there is some drainage, and these are also standardized. And this, you can see this kind of like a something look like a cube. This is a place for laundry. And maybe this is broken, but here you can see some kind of like a stove or maybe humps. Yeah, this is for, yes, putting on the buckets. You know, people in African countries always carry the water on their head. So it's very easy for them to first put the buckets on this small table and then put it on their head. So they walk to their home carrying this water. And this is another case in Zambia, which is a country located next to Malawi. So the operation and maintenance of the water supply facility is a problem. So sometimes after constructing such kind of a water supply facilities, you know, like it's fun to pump the water. So children always play with the hand pumps, and maybe sometimes the pump breaks, and maybe the community doesn't know from where they could get the spare parts. So we try to establish the sustainable operation maintenance system in Zambia. So we worked with the national government of Zambia. First, we set the O&M principles like cost sharing, sustainable supply chain, and O&M mechanism, choice of appropriate technologies, and capacity building. Like choice of appropriate technology is very important because basically those water supply facilities has to be maintained by the communities. So to raise the ownership of the communities, it's really important that the community will take the ownership to choose which technologies they want to install. So The SOMAP model, SOMAP stands for Sustainable Operation Maintenance Program, is shown on the right diagram. So there is a supporting structure from the national government. So there is an expert on financing issues, health issues, water affairs, and also there's a National Rural Water Supply Sanitation Unit, and they provide the seed stock, the money, to the commercial utilities so that they can purchase the spare parts with a large amount so that they could purchase the spare parts in a cheap price. And also, they set the regulation for the spare parts price so that the commercial utility can procure the spare parts within the uniform amount. And the stocks that was secured by the government is delivered to the communities. And there's also a mechanism to properly maintain the hand pumps. So there is a different hierarchy, district, and also community level. In community, in each area, there is an environmental health technician, rural health center, area pump mender. So these trained people will take care of village water supply, sanitation, hygiene engineers, and they will deliver the services to the communities. So this kind of a holistic system was established with the government, and not only the government, but also like other development partners work together and following the same structure. So now let's see the results of the MDGs. So I took these figures from the 2015 WHO UNICEF report. Yes, so the target was to have the population who doesn't have access to improved drinking water source. So at the time of 1990, there were 17 plus 7, 24% of the people who cannot have access, who doesn't have access to safe water. And in 2015, it has been reduced to 9%. So which means that we have successfully achieved the target of MDGs. And the right bar chart is showing the regional differences. And the green line is the target, and orange as well. And the green one is showing that they have achieved the target. Unfortunately, in the least developed countries, they couldn't meet the target. But as you can see, like Southeastern Asia, Southern Asia, or other region could achieve the target. And you can see the large change in the Eastern Asian countries. This is maybe because of like China or India has contributed a lot. And this is about the sanitation. For sanitation, the improved sanitation is shown in this deep green color. And the light green color is a shared sanitation. So the target is, we have, yes, so actually this is a coverage we have achieved, and the target was here. So unfortunately for the sanitation, we couldn't achieve the target. And yes, I think the similar trends, you can see it in the regional situation. So this is a map that shows the countries who have achieved and who has not achieved. So as you can see, like only the remaining countries are some countries in African countries and maybe like Caucasus regions. So after this situation, you might easily understand that the development partners or maybe the global society thinks that we have to strengthen the sanitation more in the post-millennium development goals era. So let's see what happened in the SDGs. So in SDGs, As you may know, we have more goals. We have 70 goals in SDGs. SDGs is covering more comprehensively about the global issues. And for the goal 6, yes, the goal 6 is the one which discusses about the safe water and sanitation. We have 6 targets. So the 6.1 is about the drinking water, achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. And the 6.2 is about the sanitation. And the big difference from the MDGs is that in 6.3, the water quality of the water body is also discussed, and also the water use efficiency to address the water scarcity issue. And integrated water resource management is for 6.1, 6.5, and 6.6. We also have a target for the water-related ecosystems. Yes, and I would like to have a closer look towards the target 6.1. So they set the indicators as proportion of the population using safely managed drinking water services. And how to monitor this indicator is that we are looking at the water supply that is located on the premises and available when needed and free of fecal and priority chemical contamination. So keeping these indicators in your mind, I would also like to share some of the cases around the world. The first one is about Chattogram City, Bangladesh. Chattogram City is the second largest city in Bangladesh. It's located in the southeastern part of Bangladesh. So it's almost next to the border of the Myanmar. As you can see, well, actually the latest census available was 2011. At that time, it already has a population of like 3.7 million. So now probably it's almost around like 5 million people living in Chattogram City. So this is sort of a typical like water supply situation in Southern Asian countries. Basically, the water flow is intermittent in the water supply. So people are wise to construct the underground reservoir. So even though the water pressure is not enough, they can store the water in the underground reservoir 24 hours. So whenever the water is stored in the underground reservoir, they pump up the water to the rooftop tank with electricity, and the water flows to each floor. And this is not only for the buildings, even for the flats. Yes, but to overcome the situation of the intermittent water supply, JICA provided finance to the Chattogram Water Supply Authority, and the project name was called Karnapuri Water Supply Project Phase 2. Karnapuri is the name of the river, as you can see, flowing on the southern part of the city. So we have constructed the intake facilities and transmission pipes and also the treatment plants for adding 286,000 cubic meter per day. And also we constructed the reservoir, high elevated tanks, and the distribution networks. So these are some of the pictures. So this is a picture of the intake. Yes. So to avoid the changes of the sea level, the intake facility has been constructed to the upper place of the river. And the water treatment plant, now construction work is ongoing, but it's almost going to complete. This construction work is done by the Korean company, and transmission line, aqueduct, is constructed by Kubota, Japanese company, and the connection pipe is constructed by the Chinese contractor. So it's literally an international project. So this is the picture of the connection pipe. So I think this side there's a road and flowing into the residence, but inside the building there's an underground tank. So even though the pressure is high, the water is just flowing into the underground tank. The second case is Joshore. This is also a city of Bangladesh. Now this one is located at the western part of the country. So here is Kolkata in India. So it's almost located at the border area between India. So this is a middle-sized city in Bangladesh, but the population, it has like 2.7 million population in 2011. So you can see how densely people are populated in Bangladesh. So actually I visited this city to see the situation of the water supply of the middle-sized city in Bangladesh. And I visited the municipal council, and they said that they have a water supply system. So I said I wanted to see those facilities. And what they showed to me was like there was a very old groundwater pump, and the elevated reservoir. Actually, this was not used at all. And close to this elevated tank, there is a faucet across the road, and somehow the water was just flowing, and it doesn't have a like water meter or something. And I also made some interviews to the people who were living in this area, and what she was telling me is that water supply is really good. She's satisfied, but she is using the water for laundry purpose and also like bathing. And she was saying that for the drinking water, she is using the private well. And I thought that the water, she is drinking the water from the water supply facility, but she was saying that no, traditionally we are using the wells, and I'm not interested in drinking the water from the water supply. So, and also this is the some outskirts area of Joshore. It's a small town, and actually he is a mayor of this town. And there's no water supply system in this area, and people were using the tube well equipped with a hand pump. And you can see that the water color is transparent, but when I smell the water, there's a strong smell of the sulfur, and the taste, I could taste the taste of the iron. And actually, these areas has a problem of the arsenic contamination. So I don't know whether this groundwater is contaminated by arsenic, but there is a risk of the arsenic contamination. This is a public faucet that was constructed by the government. So it doesn't have a pipe network, but the difference is that they are pumping up the water with electricity and store them in the tank, and there's a faucet. So of course, they don't have to pump up with a hand pump, but probably there's no major difference between these two. And actually, Islamic Development Bank was constructing the new water supply system, but they are constructing the groundwater pump station, but there would be no like elevated tanks. And well, actually there is a pump right inside this building, but you can see how dirty the surface water is, and I hope that well is deep enough to avoid the contamination from the surface. So this is one of the projects which JICA implemented actually it's in 2005, but I'm sharing this case because it was interesting. So as I explained, this area was suffering from the arsenic contamination of the groundwater. Yes, and we experimented some of the community-based water supply system. So we are utilizing the water from this crescent-shaped lake, which is called Baor in Bangladesh words. And well, this is a Baor, and there's an intake pump like this. So what we did was we constructed the small-scale slow sand filtration water treatment plant. The production capacity is very small, 60 cubic meter per day, and there are 330 households. So there's an elevated tank here. So the water coming from the bowl flows into the tank, and then there is many slow sand filtration tank in this treatment plant. So it will be treated biologically, and at the last stage, it will be chlorinated and going to the distribution pipes. So surprisingly, this project has been completed like 15 years ago, but as a community are well managing this treatment system and drinking the safe water. The last case is a case from Philippines. Manila. So it's quite famous that Manila's water supply is handled by the concessions. So in 1997, the water utilities bid out their services into two concessions. Manila Water Company for the eastern part of the city and the Maynilad Water Services for the western part of the country. So as you can see, this is a service of the Manila Water Company. The non-revenue water has been drastically decreased. So the Manila Water Company became profitable in a fifth year of its operation, but the Maynilad Water Services declared a bankruptcy after a few years. And in 2007, the government restructured the PPP and they rebid it again. So this is and JICA was also involved in the new PPP model of Maynilad Water Services. JICA conducted the feasibility study for the sound operation of the Maynilad Water Services, and JICA also provided loan to the Maynilad. And this also enabled the private lenders to finance Maynilad Water Services and also the equity finance services from the private companies of Japan. And everything was going quite well. But actually in 2019, there was a water shortage due to 60% decline in rainfall due to the El Nino. And the president threatened the concessionaires to terminate the contract, which were authorized until 2037. So it was actually a shocking news for the water community because we thought that it was a really successful cases. And just recently, the new agreements has been concluded with Maynilad and the MWSS, which is a utility in Manila. So, but the basic problem was there's no enough water resources in Manila. So currently, JICA is implementing the new water balance study covering nationwide of Philippines. So sorry, I'm not going to explain the details, but yes, this project is also ongoing. So I want to revisit the cases with the SDGs indicators. So the indicators were like located on the premises, available when needed, and free of fecal contamination and priority chemical contamination. But if we think about like before and after cases of like Chattogram, so even though the water was intermittent, but they were satisfying these indicators. And in case of Josor, yes. So before, the household was owning the groundwater with electric pump. So it was also actually satisfying the three indicators. Maybe there was a contamination, but I'm not sure. And as for the Joshore, the slow sand filtration case, so this was yes, actually, achievement, if we see the SDGs indicators as well as the MDGs indicators, and Manila's PPP case as well. And as for the water resources development, since there is a new indicators for the water scarcity, so this is also addressing to the SDGs target. So I just wanted to say that, SDGs always says that no one left behind, but if we stick too much to the indicators of the SDGs, maybe, we should not, we might forget the situation on the ground. So we should take care that no one left behind the global goals and indicators. Then I would like to touch upon the current trends, 2022 and beyond. Yes, so this slide shows the financial flows to the developing countries. So actually, from 1990s, the private finance flows has become more than the ODA flow. And as you can see, the ODA flow, which is shown in blue, is not changing so much, but the private financial flows, which is shown in yellow or gray, these are increasing. And nowadays, like after United States come back to the Paris Agreement, like SDGs financing or ESG financing is getting more and more popular. And as you may know, like Japanese budgetary policy, I think, we don't have enough budget to increase the ODA funds. So considering this, JICA is focusing on the private sector investment finance, which means that we are utilizing ODA to motivate the private company to invest more in the development sector. The one like Manila case. So this is a strategy that is showing that JICA is increasing this private sector investment finance. Another case is about the blended finance in Philippines. So this project is not the very new one, but what we did was JICA provided the concessional funds to establish the water revolving fund in Philippines together with the Development Bank of the Philippines. And we also collaborated with the United States, and the United States provided some guarantee to the private financing institutions. And together with these concessional loans and the long repayment period comparing to the private banks, it enabled the Philippines government to finance the water service providers to construct the new water supply systems. And another trend is about the digital. So yes, JICA is trying to bring in the digital technology into our ODA projects. So during the ODA project formulation stage or implementation stage, yes, we are working together with the digital partners to introduce the digital technologies to prove the concept, that is POC, concept, how the digital technology works in the development activities. So this is the case in Thailand. We collaborated with Accenture, searching the private companies and provide the digital solutions. We made a partnership with a company called Fracta, who is introducing the AI-based water pipe diagnosis technologies. And this slide shows the diagram, how the solution was provided. The first social data and the meteorological data and the others were entered together with the pipeline asset data. And the big data was analyzed with AI-based machine learning model and estimated the pipe breaking risk. So it will be used for pipe maintenance or replacement plan of the utility. And actually, the Fracta company has evaluated the accuracy of the model with which so-called time shift evaluation. I cannot explain the details, at this time, but they could identify the risk leakage, identify the risk of leakage 3 times accurate than the ordinary accurate model. And this one is a last trend. This is a yes, this is showing the situation of the population of Japan and Bangladesh. And as you can see, there is much more younger generation in Bangladesh. And this is a demand gap of ICT engineers in Japan. So as you can see, the gap, the shortage is actually increasing in Japan. And Bangladesh has a strong policy to promote the digital in the government. And they have a target to create 2 million jobs in ICT sector by 2021. This is a project called BJET, Bangladesh Japan ICT Engineers Training Program. We tried Bangladesh ICT engineers to fulfill the lacking quality human resources in the local government. And JICA provided technical assistance to Bangladesh Computer Council, which is a government authority which deals with the ICT issues. And together with them, we trained the university students who are studying the ICT engineering to equip with the Japanese language and the business customs, just like JDS. And we also made a partnership with Miyazaki Prefecture and Miyazaki University. So Miyazaki University is providing the language support and life support, and city is providing giving the subsidy for 3 months to live in Japan, in Miyazaki. And ICT companies in Miyazaki are offering the internship and job. And as a result, the table is showing the number of the BJET trainees. The project was for 3 years and 1 year had 3 batches. So most of the trainees graduated BJET course and got the job. From 1st to 7th batch, like 100% of them got the job. And out of them, you can see the good achievement and proportion of the trainees who has got the job opportunities in Japan. So this was about the story of the ICT engineers, but the shortage of human resources not only the problem of the ICT sector, but also the water sector in Japan. So maybe one of the solutions to solve this issue is a personal exchange between the developing countries and Japan. So this is my last slide. So yes, so I talked about the water supply issues in 1990 up to 2015, together with the MDGs. And after 2015, we are working towards the SDGs target. Yes, and the SDGs, it has more focus on sanitation, water quality pollution, IWRM, water-related ecosystems, but still insufficient situation in safe drinking water exists. And actually that's not properly covered with the SDGs indicators. So still many water supply issues exist in the developing world, and we have to keep working on it. And 2020 and beyond, ODA has to be used as a catalyst to induce a private financing and digital technologies. And we are interested in creating the win-win situation between Japan and the developing countries. So thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saheki. So you covered many aspects, and also I'm really happy to know you showed to the future some trend or some important component to provide to the appropriate water sector's investment, PPP, and the digital transformations and partnership. Thank you very much. So I already have the one question from the Mazdafa Abbas in chat. So you can open your video and directly you can ask Mr. Saheki.
Yes, thank you, Sensei. May I ask?
Yes, please, directly.
Thank you very much for the very informative and interesting lecture, Sensei. I was simply wondering about the case of Jessore in Bangladesh. You mentioned that 22% of the tube wells were contaminated with arsenic, and the solution was slow sand filtration. Is that right? My understanding.
Yes, you're right.
And what was the water source to this slow sand filtration?
Yes, slow sand filtration water supply system source was the lake. Yes.
Oh, so 22% tube wells were discontinued?
Sorry, the 22% is about the.
Saek-san, can you move to the relevant slide?
Yes, sure. Yes, so this lake was a water source. Yes, and you can also see in this picture. Yes, and yes, it is saying that 20% of the tube wells were contaminated by arsenic. But actually, this is about the whole area of the shoal, and it's actually the percentage of the tube well that was tested. And this slow sand filtration system is only supplying water to the limited area. So which means that this water supply system is not addressing to the whole shoal area or to the 22% of the arsenic contamination water supply situation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for clarification.
Let me have a time to give the questions. Not the questions, but the Saek-san, you talk about to the PPP. Then you introduce. I'm not so familiar. So revolving fund is managed by World Bank and Asian Bank or some other government as well?
Yes, thank you for your question, Sensei. The revolving fund is managed by this Development Bank of the Philippines, which is a government, the bank which is under the government. Yes. And yes, the fund is managed by the government, and since they are providing loans to the water service providers, so there is a debt repayment coming back to the fund. So the bank is actually revolving this fund.
It means there are many possible revolving fund to implement or to provide the service or the water supply or some urban infrastructure. In this case, so in the Manila water case, so the government make a revolving fund. But in some cases, some water sector try to get this kind of fund from Asian Developing Bank or World Bank or some other bank fund. So is it right understanding? But in this case of water service in Manila, so the government, national government in Philippines, have a really strong idea to implement. So that's the reason why they have a strong communication of the Developing Bank of the Philippines in this case. But are there any other country? So this kind of some revolving bank is function well to accelerate the water infrastructure implementations?
Yes. Yes. It's slightly complicated. In this case, JICA provided the loan to the Development Bank of Philippines, which is a sovereign loan. So, and the Development Bank of Philippines is actually making a sub-loan to the different water service providers in different water utilities like Boracay or maybe other cities. So still, JICA's loan is going to the government, Philippines government. Yes, and we have similar cases in other countries as well. But maybe the interesting thing about these cases was like usually, yes, was about we have collaborated with United States and they have provided the guarantee support, credit risk guarantee support to the private entities so that the Development Bank of the Philippines actually mixed the private fund and the fund that is coming from the government, which is from JICA. So yes, actually the funds coming from JICA was very concessional. So by mixing it with the private banks finance, the loan that is provided by the revolving fund is much more like relevant to the market situation, although it is more concessional than the than generating the fund from the private market. So this is one. And regarding the Manilad case, this one was different, in which JICA is directly financing the private company. Yes. So this is another type of instrument which JICA is implementing. So by directly financing the private company, it will increase the credit worthiness of the Manilad water services, so that like Japanese banks like Mizuho or SMBC, they feel safe to finance the private company in Philippines. So this is also one of the case to induce or motivate the private sector to finance the water supply sector.
Yeah, I see. Thank you very much. So, are there some questions from the other participants? I expect some questions the last year. Okay, now coming. So, Dan-san, you can open your video. Then you can directly ask him.
Yes,
these...
I would just like to ask if there are also investment projects with JICA involvement with regards to the sewerage and sanitation,
as well as water supply.
Yes, yes, I'd say because it's
Yes.
the problem of the sewerage and sanitation is also existing in Manila, as far as the water quality in Manila Bay and the receiving water bodies is concerned. We cannot cope up with the water supply.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. Yes. I think in Manila, like sewerage treatment is carried out by these concessions. So through the service of Manila, yes, JICA is financing the Manila, and Manila is like constructing the sewage treatment plant, like one in Parañaque. That is also one project financed by JICA. And that was also a combination of the sovereign loan. It was different from the one I introduced in the slides, but there was another sovereign loan which we provided to the Bank of Bangladesh Development sorry, not Bangladesh, Bank of Development of Philippines. Yes, and through that fund, actually, Mindlab applied for that finance, and they constructed the sewer treatment plant. And regarding the rain runoff, now JICA is conducting the feasibility study for the underground tunnel that is connecting the Manila Bay, Laguna Lake, and Bay of Manila. So that is one mega project which is ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are many issues related to water, so as well as a water supply. Any other questions? Now it's already past to the 5 o'clock. So if even if you do not have the questions at this moment, so you already know Mr. Saheki, so he knows a lot of things. If you have any questions or some any questions, you can directly contact with him, or through me, you can contact with him. So I want to finish this today's special lecture, but at the end of this lecture, I want to express appreciation to the Mr. Saheki, and also I add one word. So in fact, sometimes in Japan, so Japanese word is hitomo no kane and jouho. It means a human being and some facility or goods or something, and the fund or money. And also we need to deal with our informations. So in the last part of the looking at the future, he talked about PPP. Is kind of related to the fund or money management. And second is DX. It means information technology should be including big data or something. And last one is a win-win partnership, might be related to the human resource development something. So it means connected to each other. So to deal with the environmental issue or water issues, so even if you're working on the detailed research, still you also expand or widen your eye or insight to the different part to solve the environmental problem. So this is my kind of comment or a message to participants as well. Anyway, you can open your mic and express our thanks to Mr. Saheki by clapping hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.